Welcome to the Undiscovered Gems podcast, hosted by NBA legend and business powerhouse Charles D. Smith, highlighting today's best and brightest business minds.
Hi, and welcome to Undiscovered Gems. I'm the host, Charles D. Smith, and today we have on our show Margaret Enloe. Margaret is a 30-year practicing lawyer. Margaret is also a professional certified coach. She coaches executives, and she is not a life coach. She coaches the whole person, and we're going to get into that. Margaret, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Charles. Wonderful to be here.
All right. Margaret, talk to us. What is a professional certified coach? People use the acronym PCC, but what is it?
Professional certified coach is a designation from the International Coach Federation, which is an organization out of the UK that a lot of people recognize as very significant in the field of coaching, providing not only education to coaches and training to coaches, but allowing coaches literally around the world to comply with certain levels of education themselves or training to become certified by the International Coach Federation. So the first designation is Charles ACC, Associate Certified Coach, which you get after, let's say, 8 months training program. And it doesn't have to be with the International Coach Federation, and then maybe 250 hours of coaching. A PCC is someone who's gone through that training and yet more training, and then has coached at a minimum 500 hours. So, and then you have to take an exam. It's a remote exam with the ICF, or International Coach Federation. And then the last designation, which I have not reached, is MCC, or Master Certified Coach. And there are many fewer of those because the levels you have to attain and meet are just that much higher. So a PCC is what I am, and it means that I can coach executives, leaders, people that want to grow in some capacity, but it demonstrates to the people who are knowledgeable that I've had a certain level of training. Yes. And they should be comfortable with that, because there are a lot of coaches out there who have had no training because, as I may have told you, it's not a licensed profession. So right. Like the lawyers and the doctors and the CPAs of the world, those are licensed professions. You can be a coach if you say, I'm a coach.
Exactly.
So, there you go.
Probably more people that are out there that just say I'm a coach versus those who, like yourself, have gone through the training to qualify yourself as a coach. Correct. Let's talk about the difference. People sometimes refer to coaches as life coaches, and you're so much more. What is the difference between a life coach and basically what is the difference with what you do versus what someone would say was a life coach, what they do?
Sure. A life coach is somebody who is focused on the personal life, at least as I see it, of an individual. So it's going to relate to maybe something at home, something personal. And an executive coach or a leadership coach, as I am, the focus is going to be much more on their work. What's happening at work? How are they doing, achieving what they're trying to achieve at work? A leader, what are they trying to do and achieve, let's say, leading their team, or many other issues. Having said that, Charles, in all of my coaching, I do focus, but not all the time, on the person's life. I will of course ask them in the beginning of an engagement to tell me a little bit about who is in their life, who are the main players in their life, whom do they network with, what are some of their habits, what are some of the things that they do that they're proud of, and really quite a few other things. But I'm trying to get a sense of their whole life. Sometimes I give them what's called the wheel of life. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it breaks in a circle down into various segments. So job or career might be one, personal life, love interest, hobbies, health. Health is a huge factor. And you could be coaching an executive, and if you don't know that that executive is teetering on some brink of health catastrophe, or
Mhm.
has real health issues that keep him or her from being as robust in their work as possible, then you can't really coach them. So you need to you can't coach them well. You need to understand more about them so that they can move forward with the issues that they're coming to you for. But back to a life coach, normally somebody doesn't come to me and ask me to be their life coach, but issues around a person's life always come into play in some respect.
Right. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
And there is a clear distinction. So your ability to share what you do publicly,
Mhm.
do you go out and speak much?
I don't speak much. I have done it. Most years I've had one, two, or sometimes three speaking engagements. So
Mhm.
I'm not out there trying to find coaching and speaking engagements, but I have done them at law firms. I've done them at companies, an architectural firm, a conference of women,
Mhm.
a number of times. And yeah, I've talked about a number of issues, and they usually are very well received, and I enjoy them. I think I do a good job, so I do that. Yes, and it helps amplify some of my coaching by, for example, hey, uh, confidence is key, one of the titles of my talks. And we know that in life or in a job, a career, the more confident you are, I'm not talking about being cocky, the more
Right.
likely you are to be successful. There are lots of research on being successful. It's easier if you're confident, even
Mhm.
if you may not be as qualified, but if you're confident, and again, project that in a good way, people are going to pay more attention to you. So that issue, for example, something I talk about in my talks, how to be more confident, but it also is useful to me in my coaching engagements where I might see that somebody is not as confident, or they might say that to me. And confidence is not something you can talk about easily with your colleagues. You
Right.
can't say, I'm not really feeling so confident today, Joe. You don't say that. So I can talk about that in my speeches, and people understand, oh yeah, she's right. You don't go in the locker room or the coffee room and say, hey, I'm really not feeling so great today. I'm not feeling so confident today. But there are ways of understanding confidence so that you can learn to be more confident. So
Right.
I talk about it, and yes, it's useful to me in my coaching as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who fall short climbing the corporate ladder just because they have lack of confidence. They got all the pedigree and the knowledge,
Yes.
but that confidence is really important.
Yeah.
It is critical.
Yeah.
Where do most of your clients come from? Where do you reside?
So I reside, Charles, on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, right near Central Park, which is one
Ah,
reason I got through with my husband the COVID, because we just go out to the park and with a mask on. And so my clients come from the New York area, New Jersey,
I see.
Connecticut, but because of, in part, as a result of COVID, where people started using Zoom so much more, I now have, even before, but more so since the pandemic, I have clients in cities around the country, California, Texas, Florida. I also have clients right now. I have one in Singapore. I have a client in Germany. So Zoom really does allow me, and as well as other professionals, to engage with clients in many different locations. So I've been quite happy with the my ability to coach more broadly than, let's say, the New York area, because it's always nice when you can meet a client in person, and I do
Right.
that when a client comes from the New York area, usually the first or second time, maybe the eighth time, depending on how long I'm coaching them. But I do have clients I've never met in person, and they're from many different areas outside of the New York area.
Do you find that you have your style of coaching is different via Zoom than in person?
Uh, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. It's I like being in person
Right.
because you see people, right? If I were in the same room with you now, I know things about you that I can't know doing this only by Zoom.
Right.
But having said that, I don't think my style is any different. It's just you pick up on some things that you can't pick up on if you're only remote. That's all. But I don't think my
Right.
style is any different. Yeah.
Right. Right. No, you can. You can. So talking about your clients, what are some of the situations that you've been in with a client where you've been challenged to be able to get that, moving someone forward, move that person from one place to another? Share that experience and how you've gotten through that challenge with the client.
Yeah, and there have been certainly some clients like that. Where you know after, let's say, the first or second meeting, kind of where they want to go, what they're struggling with. And a lot
Sure.
of times I get information on that before I've even met with them the first time. That if a client, one of the things that comes up fairly often for me, and I think other coaches as well, you agree with the client during the meeting about some things they're going to work on between the meetings.
Right.
It's what I might refer to as their homework, but I never impose it on them. It's something that they conclude or feel it would be useful for me to spend some time on this. So where clients have trouble moving forward as quickly as some others is where that homework, that work that they know they want to do, they don't get to it for a variety of reasons. And
Mm-hmm.
usually they're valid reasons. We all know things get in the way all the time. But there are some clients that, for one reason or another, take it more seriously. And they do that work between our meetings. So, how to overcome that? It's great when and when I can, I notice something is happening like that. I'll say to them, I've noticed, John, that we talked about you're doing X and Y after between our meetings, and that you haven't gone to it, but that happened one or two times before. Is that something that let's just probe that a little bit more and find
Mm-hmm.
out what is keeping you from maybe giving this the importance that I you told me it had for you. And so you get talking about it. And it may or may not resolve the issue, but at least it allows somebody, you don't duck it, you don't shove it under the rug and say, "Oh, I wish they were doing it. They move along so much faster." You have to address these kinds of things with a client in a kind way, maybe a challenging way, depending on the client. You might be a little more challenging with some than others. Uh, but yeah, coaching can be and is successful because a coach will notice some things, and rather than letting it slide, will raise it with the client. So I've had that issue come up with me. Some clients that clients have to reschedule, but
Mm-hmm.
most of them want to find another time. It's not reschedule and then not come. And I really haven't had that. They take it seriously enough for that. Um, and the other thing, sometimes where clients are not as focused on what they want to achieve. They might say, "I want to get this kind of a job." But the next time you talk to them, "Well, I really wasn't so keen. I talked to so and so, and now I've decided I'm not so
Sure.
interested in that." Well, then you start the conversation over again. So that doesn't happen too often, though.
The word coach
Mhm.
um, says that, like, your moniker, moving you forward. That's what a coach does to
Mm,
everyone that they're coaching.
right.
And I asked you about the challenges because with clients, because for someone to be able to coach, they have to have gone through some
Mhm.
experiences that give these three features: resiliency, never, resilient, never giving up,
Mhm.
understanding, having pragmatic views about things,
Mhm.
not getting caught up in the emotional duress of things, and just kind of moving forward. So
Right.
I've noticed that you've had some personal experiences in your life
Mhm.
where you had to kind of pick yourself up and move forward. So share some of those experiences with us.
Sure. Yeah. In my life, I've been blessed with many wonderful things, including great parents and a wonderful sister and three wonderful children, and I could say more. But I, like so many other people, have had some issues arise in my life that set me back. And one, Charles, just since you asked the question, I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2008.
Hmm.
And that came actually not as a shock, because the percentage of women who get breast cancer is now 1 in 8. When I got it, it was, I think, 1 in 11. So I said, well, I'm 1 in 11. I just wasn't so surprised. And it was
Mhm.
caught early. And I did go through chemotherapy, and my hair fell out. And that's where I cried. I cried when my hair fell out. But
Mhm.
I got over that. I had a good wig, and I had a good doctor, and I went through radiation when the chemo was done.
Mhm.
And I was, as I said, I'm a glass half full kind of person. So I felt this will likely be okay.
Right.
And no, 12 years later, I'm still in remission, and I still go to
Right.
the doctor for checkups. But it was breast
Mhm.
cancer. So
Yeah.
it was something I had to really struggle with or deal with, and my family too. It was almost harder for my family. And then I guess another thing is, I had a bad accident, not a car accident, but I was in an indoor rock climbing gym, and I like to play sports. I like to do active things. So I went
Mhm.
with my daughter, who my daughter at the time was suffering with anorexia. And that was a real difficult issue for me and my husband to deal with. Uh, but we went to a rock climbing gym together, and she didn't want to go first. I said, well, I'll go first, and went up the wall with the harness, but the harness wasn't tied in the right way.
Properly.
I
Wow.
wasn't checked by the attendant there. And
Wow.
I basically fell down 25 feet and crashed on the floor, and probably survived that, or was not paralyzed because of the soft cushioning on the rug on the floor. But they didn't know what was going to go on. I did recover. I went through major surgeries on my back, my
Wow.
foot, my chest. I had double vision for 3 months, and I was out of work for 6 months. So, yeah, big setback. Again, glass half full person.
Right.
I I had a lot of company, people coming to see me, and I muscled my way through. And I guess this didn't happen to me, but it happened to me and my family. My husband was in the World Trade Center on 9/11.
Mm.
He was on there 2000. I think the first attack was 3 or 4 years before. I forget. There was a 30th anniversary recently. Anyway, he was in the World Trade Center both times. And the second time, which is the more people know it better, 9/11, he
Right.
was on the 91st floor of the first building to be hit, the North Tower. I was
Wow.
up in Boston at the SEC for depositions. This was back in my legal days. And that obviously, he has had to weather in ways that I have not, but it's
Sure.
obviously affected the family, and it's affected the world. And when I talk about it, sort of tears come to my eyes.
Yeah.
So
Yes. Yes. Well, when you do get clients and they're going through some things, that's why I asked the question. You have the ability to be empathetic,
yeah,
compassionate, but you also have the knowledge to move them forward based on, their
no,
experiences obviously are different, but
sure,
their experiences, and we all
right,
have to pick ourselves
mm,
up and get going.
exactly,
So
yeah,
another
yeah.
question I want to ask you is the term coach, and you
Mm.
say you like sports. How does the sports industry and your ability to being engaged and play sports, how does that play into your certified coaching?
I I think it's primarily because in sports it's physical. You have to take action. You got to bounce the ball. You got to throw the ball. You got to hit the ball. So
Hmm.
in in tennis, or tennis is one example. I love that, but just so many sports, you have to be active and do something. And in coaching, it's similar in that I like to help clients think about what action they're going to take. You need to do it after thinking through the goal or goals that they have, but what are you going to do about those goals is a feature of good coaching. And
Right.
another feature, of course, is holding a client accountable for doing that. Back to my issue before, it's in many ways that you hold a client accountable, or that they feel accountable, but it's taking action and helping them think through what could they do. They may come up with one or two things they could do. I find a lot of my clients, when I ask them, so what do you think you should do about the procrastination, or
Right.
your nervousness around speaking up, of in leading the team in a way that you feel proud of. For example, they might very often come up with one or two things they can do. Given my experience, the breadth of my experience, I will often think of a couple of other things. And I think, yes, that fits in a little bit to my sporting, the energy
Right.
I have,
Sure.
the enthusiusm I have. And yet, to
Sure.
win a game, you got to be motivated to win, right? And I'm
Right.
motivated with my clients to help them win. So I don't know, it's partly it's an energy thing, a motivation thing, just kind of like being on the court with them, right?
Well,
So
your clients, people, executives for sure, a key time in their lives where they need to win more so than any other time is during retirement or when they're about to retire.
sure.
I've heard some executives, like an athlete, they say it's like a death. You've been doing it for so long, you've been on a high level for so long, the phone's not ringing, you don't have the
Hmm.
same schedule, and you need to find something to put that inner beast to work because you've been doing
Exactly.
it for so
Yeah.
long.
Right. Right. Right.
How do you help them at that time? Do you have you dealt with many retirees or trying to go into a second career?
Yeah, I've dealt with quite a few, and it's a niche of mine in the coaching
Mm.
world. In part because I had to retire from PwC as a partner there some years ago, and that's when I transitioned into becoming a coach. I wasn't doing, I wasn't ready to just hang it up, and so I do coach, yeah, people that are thinking about retirement, Charles, or they're very close to it, or maybe they're a few years out, and it's it's really a wonderful process where you help them think through what they might like to do. But they might say, I don't know what I want to do. I'm just feeling nervous about it. And I'm resistant to speaking to my colleagues about it, might be one thing. So, again, you need to, as a coach, understand where the client is when you are working with them. And to make the coaching effective, they need to want to get the help of a coach. If it has to do with, let's say, retirement, sitting down with them and thinking through with them, well, where are you right now? How clear are you about what you might do later? If they're not so clear, if they're married, how does your spouse or significant other feel about this?
Hmm.
I've done situations where I've brought the spouse and the client together. Again, that's not always going to happen, but that
Right.
reveals a lot of information. So the starting point for that is understanding where the client is, and also if they're just kind of emotional energy is all tied up in it, well, then you spend a certain amount of time helping them get more relaxed around it, understanding that millions of people are going through this now. The baby boomers are going through it in
Sure.
huge numbers. So their nerves are normal, and getting them to feel comfortable with that they are going to make, as you say, give up their mantle of prestige and power. Maybe their phone isn't going to ring as much. So getting them comfortable with, well, so who are some people you might enjoy spending time with? Um, so there are different ways of going about it, but it's
Hmm.
understanding where the client is and where they want to go, um, so that you as the coach can figure out how best to help them. I'm working with a woman now, a partner in a large law firm. She's quite comfortable about retirement. She's not
Hmm.
nervous about it. she's in her way looking forward to it. Most clients that come to talk to me don't have that attitude. They're nervous about it. Something's,
Sure.
they're worried about it. But nonetheless, she is finding it very helpful in talking through issues that I think, without my asking her some questions, she wouldn't be thinking about in
Mm,
connection with her retirement that she's in a way looking forward to.
right.
So I talked to her about different things.
Yeah. No. Retirement is a tough thing. Just from an athlete's perspective, I always say, when you spend over 10 years pushing your body to mental and physical exhaustion, and you retire,
Right.
you're either going to do something constructive or you're going to do something destructive. But you got to do
Destructive.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
You
got to
got to
do
do
something.
something. Yeah. And I've never coached an athlete
Mm,
who's somebody like you, who's been on a professional basketball team.
hmm
Having said that, yes, I would love to do that because it would match up my interest in sports. And I played basketball and 4 years in high school. I loved it. I was pretty good, but I went to a city school that they didn't have a basketball team.
Sure.
Otherwise, I would have gone out for the college team.
Sure.
But yeah.
Yeah. Um, Let me ask you, when you look at your field, and I want you to put yourself in the position of a potential client, and they're looking at a professional certified coach.
Mhm,
What should they, if it's you, what would
mhm,
you be looking for? What should they look
mm,
for
yeah.
in getting the right professional certified coach
Yeah.
that works for them?
Um, First, I would, as a client, potential client, be interested in what kind of training has this coach had. They may not be
Good.
a PCC, but look at their LinkedIn page profile, see if they have a website. I would want to see that this person had done coaching for some period of time, and are they something that, apart from what they are telling me, can I find something about them on the internet?
Sure.
What's their social media might be one place as well, but not so much. LinkedIn and the website would be something. What training have they received? I'd be interested in how long they've been doing it. Do they have any? Hey, if let's say I were coming to them, I was a lawyer. Well, have you ever worked with lawyers before? They might say no. That doesn't mean
Right.
they don't get it. They couldn't be a good coach, but as a lawyer, I might want to know that. Have they done anything in the business world?
Sure.
If you're an entrepreneur, have they ever worked with other entrepreneurs? So to get that kind of background, um, I want to ask them, do you have a process? And coaches do have a process. It's not like it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if you're lucky.
Right.
Okay. But it's just hearing the coach talk about their process. And does it sound right to you? Does it come across well? And then I'd also want to ask them, how often do you recommend meeting with somebody like me? And what do they say? They say, well, I think every week, every 2 weeks. Just see how they respond to that. I meet normally with my clients every other week, but some
Mm,
clients, if they say, I think it might be helpful to meet every week for a while, I say, okay, fine. And that's another thing. How flexible are they? Um, you might ask them something about, how do you maintain confidentiality? How can I be comfortable that what we talk about will be confidential? And um, uh, so that might be something that I might ask as a potential client. And I
sure.
think last is, how long would you see this engagement going? Well, first, rates rates might be of interest, of course, but how long based on everything I've told you, would you see this engagement going? And I think it's a very good question, because not everybody needs to talk with a coach for a year, 9 months, or even 6 months. And you coming into it thinking about getting some coaching might want some assurance that, one, the coach has been listening to what you have said, and second, can give you some feedback on, in light of what your issues are, how long do you think we'd be working together? So
Right.
that would be I think, another thing I might end with.
Right. No, and that's good because we've again, speaking with you, Margaret, we've come to a close, and time just
Sure.
flew right by. And
Yeah.
I want to thank you for being on the show, and for the audience who they can see your ticker on the bottom. You're able to reach Margaret Enloe at www.margaretenloe.com. Margaret is a professional of the year. She's a professional certified coach. And Margaret, I want to thank you for being on the show, sharing your wisdom with us. Well received. Thank you.
Charles, thank you. Appreciate the time with you.
All right.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Undiscovered Gems with our host, Charles D. Smith, highlighting today's best and brightest business minds. Brought to you by Pods Entertainment Group.